You were never supposed to go to bed with a mind that feels like a machine left running without supervision. And yet, night after night, that is exactly what happens. Your body lies down, the lights go off, the room is quiet. But inside, the system is still processing, still calculating, still replaying unfinished loops. You call it thinking, but it feels more like being trapped in a program you can't close. If you don't learn how to deliberately power down your mind, it will continue running simulations long after you needed rest, draining energy you were meant to wake up with. Most people try to fall asleep by force. They shut their eyes and wait, hoping fatigue will override mental noise. But the human mind is not a light switch. It is closer to a computational engine. If processes are still active, output continues. Sleep doesn't begin when you lie down. It begins when internal activity drops below a certain threshold. The problem is not that your brain is too awake. The problem is that too many mental processes were left open. The first technique to shut down the mind before sleep is what could be called cognitive closure. Throughout the day, your brain opens loops, decisions to make, problems to solve, conversations to revisit, possibilities to simulate. Each loop demands background processing. When bedtime arrives, those open loops do not politely disappear. They remain active threads competing for attention, which is why the moment your environment becomes quiet, the internal noise becomes loud. Cognitive closure means deliberately ending the day's open processes before your head touches the pillow. Not by solving everything, and that's impossible, but by marking each loop as registered and scheduled. The brain relaxes when it knows information is stored externally. A simple written list of unresolved items signals to your mind that nothing will be forgotten. This reduces the need for continuous rehearsal. You are not trying to clear your life. You are clearing your working memory. Notice the difference. When a task lives only in your head, the mind must keep it active to avoid losing it. When it is recorded, the system offloads it. That offloading is the beginning of mental quiet. Many people resist this because they believe thinking at night is being responsible. In reality, it is inefficient processing. Nighttime rumination rarely produces solutions, only exhaustion. Try this tonight. Before bed, write down what remains unfinished and one tiny next step for each item. Then make a mental statement that the system will resume tomorrow. It may feel artificial, but repetition trains the brain to associate this ritual with shutdown. If this idea already shifts how you see your nights, pause and reflect on how many problems you have been trying to solve in the dark instead of scheduling them for daylight. The second technique involves reducing cognitive input before sleep. A machine cannot cool down if new data keeps being fed into it, yet many people end the day with maximum stimulation, messages, news, comparisons, entertainment designed to capture attention. Each new piece of information activates emotional and analytical responses. The mind enters sleep not empty, but loaded. Information is not neutral. Every input creates micro-decisions, micro-reactions, micro-tensions. The nervous system does not instantly distinguish between important and optional data. It simply processes. When input continues until the final minutes before sleep, the mind has no buffer period to decelerate. It is like asking an engine at full speed to stop without reducing throttle. Creating an input boundary is not about discipline for its own sake. It is about allowing mental processes to wind down naturally. Even 15 to 20 minutes of low stimulation transition can dramatically change sleep onset. During this window, avoid new information, no problem solving, no emotional conversations, no endless scrolling. Instead, choose predictable, non-demanding activity. Light reading, gentle music, simple routines. Predictability signals safety. Safety allows the system to power down. Many people say they relax with their phone. In truth, they distract themselves. Distraction occupies attention, but does not lower activation. Relaxation reduces internal load. You will know the difference by how your body feels. Distraction leaves subtle tension. True relaxation softens breath and posture. Pay attention to that distinction. Your body is an accurate diagnostic tool. The third technique is perhaps the most underestimated, directing attention away from abstract thought and back to physical sensation. The mind accelerates when attention is free to wander through memory and anticipation. Bringing attention to the body anchors it in the present, where fewer variables exist. This is not mystical, it is attentional mechanics. When you lie down, instead of following thoughts, observe physical signals. The weight of your body, the rhythm of your breath, the contact between skin and fabric. You are not trying to empty the mind, you are giving it a simpler object to process. Sensory data is stable and repetitive, abstract thought is complex and branching. By choosing sensation, you lower cognitive complexity. At first, the mind will resist. It is used to chasing problems. Gently returning attention to the body. Each time thoughts drift is like redirecting a system toward low-power mode. Over time, the association strengthens. Lying down plus body awareness equals reduced processing. Sleep then emerges, not as a battle won, but as a state allowed. Consider how different this is from trying to force sleep. Forcing creates tension. Redirection creates conditions. Sleep is not commanded, it is permitted. These three techniques, cognitive closure, input reduction, and sensory anchoring, work together like stages of shutdown in a machine. First, close active programs, then stop feeding new data. Finally, shift to low-complexity processing. None of this requires perfection, it requires consistency. The brain learns patterns. Repeated signals of closure, quiet, and safety retrain your nights. If you recognize yourself in this constant mental activity before sleep, take a moment to acknowledge it instead of criticizing yourself. Your mind has been trying to protect you by anticipating and solving. Now you are teaching it a different skill, stopping. That skill changes not only how you sleep but how you wake, and if this perspective helps you see your restless nights with more clarity, share your thoughts below. Sometimes putting your experience into words is the first act of cognitive closure. There is a critical misconception that keeps people trapped in nightly mental overactivity. The belief that thinking more at night equals being more prepared for tomorrow. From a computational perspective, this is inefficient resource allocation. Nighttime cognition runs on reduced accuracy and increased emotional bias. You are attempting high-level processing while the system is fatigued. The output feels urgent, but it is rarely precise. What you call planning often becomes circular simulation. Your mind evolved to anticipate threats and possibilities. That mechanism kept humans alive. But in the modern environment, where threats are abstract and continuous, anticipation never receives a clear stop signal. The mind continues projecting scenarios because it has not been given a boundary condition. Without boundaries, a system assumes processing must continue. This is where the architecture of mental shutdown becomes essential. After you perform cognitive closure and reduce input, you must address another layer: emotional residue. Unprocessed emotion is one of the most powerful drivers of mental loops at night. A conversation that felt unfair, a mistake replayed, an interaction you wish had gone differently. These become unresolved emotional equations. Unlike logical tasks, emotional experiences are not solved through analysis alone. The mind replays them trying to reach a different outcome, but the event is already fixed. The loop persists because the emotional signal was never acknowledged. Recognition acts as a form of completion. Suppression does the opposite. It flags the experience as still active. Before sleep, take a brief moment to scan your day, not for events, but for emotional charge. Ask a simple internal question. What from today still feels alive inside me? Do not dissect it. Do not justify it. Simply identify it. Naming the emotion, frustration, embarrassment, disappointment, even excitement, gives the brain a label. Labels reduce uncertainty. Reduced uncertainty lowers activation. When emotion is unnamed, the brain keeps it in a high-priority state, scanning for relevance. When it is labeled, the system categorizes it as processed data. You are not erasing feelings, you are organizing them. Organization is calming to any system, biological or computational. Another factor often overlooked is mental self-evaluation at night. Many people use bedtime as a performance review. They audit what they did wrong, what they didn't finish, how they should have behaved. This internal criticism activates the same neural pathways as social threat. The body responds with tension, not rest. From a systems standpoint, error detection is useful only when correction can occur. At night, correction is impossible. Therefore, extended self-critique is wasted energy. A more efficient method is to shift from evaluation to acknowledgement. Instead of "I failed to do enough," try "This is where today ended." The difference seems small, but alters the signal from threat to closure. The mind that feels safe powers down. The mind that feels judged stays alert. You may notice resistance here. Letting go of mental review can feel irresponsible, as if relaxing equals negligence. In reality, rest is maintenance. No system operates continuously without degradation. Sleep restores processing capacity, emotional regulation, and cognitive flexibility. By allowing shutdown, you improve tomorrow's performance rather than abandoning it. Another subtle but powerful adjustment involves expectation. Many people go to bed with the goal of sleeping well. That goal itself creates monitoring. Monitoring increases alertness. It is similar to trying to observe the moment you fall asleep. The act of observation delays the event. Instead, shift the objective from "I must sleep" to "I am creating the conditions for rest." Conditions are under your control. Sleep is an outcome. This reduces pressure. Reduced pressure lowers arousal. Sleep follows. You might begin to see a pattern. Mental quiet does not come from force, but from signals of safety, completion, and predictability. The brain asks, "Is there something urgent I must handle now?" If the answer remains yes, even subconsciously, it stays active. Your nightly practices are essentially a way of communicating "not now." It is also important to understand adaptation. The first nights you apply these techniques, the mind may continue its usual activity. Habits of mental overdrive are learned through repetition, and so is shutdown. Consistency matters more than intensity. A small, repeatable routine is more effective than occasional dramatic effort. Think of it as retraining an automatic process. Each evening you close loops, reduce input, acknowledge emotion and anchor attention to sensation. You reinforce a new association with bedtime. This is when processing slows. Eventually the transition becomes smoother because the brain predicts it. And if you notice even a slight change, a shorter time to settle, fewer racing thoughts, a softer mental tone, recognize that progress. Awareness of improvement strengthens the pattern. If this understanding of how your mind operates at night is resonating, take a moment to reflect on which of these layers, unfinished tasks, excess input, emotional residue, or self-critique, is most active for you. Identifying your main driver of nighttime activity is a powerful first step toward regaining control over your mental shutdown. There is still one more dimension most people overlook, and it explains why some nights feel heavier than others, even when routines stay the same. Your mind does not only process events, it processes identity. Before sleep, when external demands fade, a deeper question often emerges beneath the noise. Am I where I'm supposed to be? That question rarely appears in clear language. It shows up as vague restlessness, unease without a specific cause, a sense that something in your life remains unresolved at a structural level. When identity-level uncertainty is active, the mind intensifies processing because it is attempting to solve a problem that cannot be resolved in a single night. This creates long cognitive loops that masquerade as small worries. You think you are replaying a conversation, but beneath it lies a broader evaluation about competence, belonging, direction, or worth. These are not bedtime problems. They are life-scale variables. The mistake is trying to solve life-scale questions at sleep scale. The brain cannot conclude them quickly, so it keeps cycling. What helps is not answering those questions, but postponing them deliberately. Just as you scheduled tasks earlier, you can schedule reflection. Choose a specific future moment, tomorrow afternoon, this weekend, where you will think about bigger decisions. This converts an undefined concern into a bounded process. Boundaries calm the system. Your mind is not the enemy here. It is performing exactly as designed, scanning for unresolved variables that may affect survival or stability. The skill you are developing is governance. You are learning to decide when certain types of thinking are useful and when they are not. That distinction is a form of mental maturity rarely taught. You may also notice how the body participates in mental overactivity. When muscles remain subtly tense, the brain interprets that tension as a signal of vigilance. Relaxation is not only psychological, it is mechanical feedback. A simple, slow exhale longer than the inhale activates parasympathetic responses that signal safety. You are not doing a technique so much as changing the internal message from prepare to stand down. This feedback loop between body and mind means that even small physical adjustments, unclenching the jaw, softening the shoulders, letting the tongue rest, reduce cognitive drive. The brain constantly reads bodily states to decide whether to maintain alertness. A tense body sustains a busy mind. Another layer involves expectation of nighttime productivity. Some people secretly value their late-night thinking, seeing it as a time of insight. Occasionally that is true, but if it comes at the cost of chronic fatigue, the trade-off is inefficient. Creative thought is sharper in a rested system. Sacrificing sleep for low-quality insight is like overclocking a processor without cooling. Performance drops long-term. Recognize that turning off mental processing at night is not suppression of intelligence. It is strategic allocation. You are preserving capacity for when it matters most. The mind that can shut down is more powerful than the mind that runs endlessly. You may be surprised how this ability affects mornings. When mental processes truly slow before sleep, you wake with fewer residual threads. There is less carryover noise, less immediate pressure. The day begins from a baseline closer to neutral instead of deficit. This changes not only energy, but perception. Problems appear more solvable when the system is not overloaded from the start. If you step back, the pattern becomes clear. Nighttime mental overactivity is rarely about a single thought. It is about system state. Too many open loops, excessive input, unacknowledged emotion, self-critique, identity uncertainty, and physical tension. Each element sends a signal that something requires attention now. Your work is to gently change that message to handled later. This does not make you passive, it makes you precise. You are choosing the right time for the right type of processing. That is how complex systems remain stable. Consistency with these practices builds a new internal association with night. This is a period of shutdown, restoration, and integration. Over time, the mind begins to trust that it does not need to stay on guard after dark. Trust is the foundation of mental quiet. If this deeper layer about identity and system state connects with what you experience, take a moment to sit with that recognition. Awareness itself reduces the sense of mystery around restless nights. And when something is understood, it becomes easier to influence. You are not trying to silence your mind, you are teaching it when to rest. That distinction changes everything. At some point, you begin to understand that the real goal was never simply to fall asleep faster. The deeper objective is to regain authority over when your mind works and when it stops. A system that never shuts down is not strong, it is overloaded. And overload, sustained long enough, does not look like dramatic collapse. It looks like slow erosion, foggy mornings, reduced patience, emotional volatility, difficulty concentrating on simple tasks. The cost of a mind that never powers down is paid the next day in diminished clarity. What makes this difficult is that modern life rewards constant mental engagement. You are praised for being reachable, informed, responsive. But your nervous system was not designed for permanent cognitive availability. It evolved in cycles: activation and recovery, focus and release. When recovery disappears, performance eventually follows. The ability to disengage at night is therefore not a luxury habit. It is cognitive maintenance. Just as a machine requires cooling periods to prevent damage, your brain requires intervals where processing slows enough for restoration to occur. During sleep, memory consolidates, emotional charge decreases, neural pathways reorganize. But these processes depend on the system actually entering a low-activity state first. If mental simulations continue intensely right up to sleep, the transition is incomplete. You might notice something important now. None of these techniques ask you to eliminate thinking. They ask you to change its timing and intensity. There is a difference between a mind that serves you and a mind that runs unsupervised. Supervision does not mean control over every thought. It means shaping conditions so that thought becomes quieter when quiet is needed. There is also a psychological shift happening beneath these practices. Each time you close loops on paper, reduce input, acknowledge emotion, release self-judgment, schedule larger concerns for later, and return attention to physical sensation, you are sending a repeated signal. I am safe enough to stop. Safety is the master variable. Without perceived safety, the mind stays active. With it, slowing down becomes possible. Many people search for a dramatic technique that will instantly silence mental noise. That expectation itself keeps the system in problem-solving mode. What actually works is cumulative signaling. Small, consistent cues of closure and predictability build trust inside the nervous system. Trust reduces vigilance. Reduced vigilance allows sleep to emerge naturally. You may begin to experience a subtle but meaningful change. Instead of fighting thoughts at night, you notice them without following them. They pass with less emotional pull. This is not because your life has no problems. It is because your brain has learned there is an appropriate time to engage with them. Bedtime is no longer coded as decision hour. When this shift happens, mornings feel different. Not euphoric, not perfect, simply less heavy. There is less immediate mental backlog. You start the day with more available bandwidth. That extra capacity often shows up as patience, clearer judgment, or the ability to focus longer without fatigue. The benefit of mental shutdown appears in daytime performance. Understand that setbacks will occur. Stressful periods temporarily reactivate old patterns. That does not mean the process failed. It means the system reverted under load. Returning to these practices re-establishes the signal. Consistency, not perfection, creates change. Perhaps the most important realization is this: your mind's nighttime activity was never proof of strength or dedication. It was a sign that the system never received permission to stop. You are now learning to give that permission deliberately. If this way of understanding your restless nights brings a sense of clarity, take a moment to consider which of these shutdown signals you can apply consistently starting tonight. Even one repeated change can alter the overall system state over time. And if reflecting on your own patterns helps you see your mind less as an enemy and more as a system that can be guided, share that insight below. Sometimes articulating the shift reinforces it internally.